I was driving home from work. I was in the Rocky Mountains. This was late winter. As I crested a little hill, a very large mule deer. So I jerked my wheel to the left and I went into the other lane of traffic, and coming up the hill was a semi-truck. And I looked up and I saw the Milky Way galaxy, and I saw a group of spirits or ethereal beings, and they were all light and beautiful. I felt welcomed.
Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And just a reminder, my home base is wedon'tdie.com, where you can always find great things. We do a free Sunday gathering inspirational service with medium demonstration included, offer classes. You can watch past episodes. At the bottom of the page, if you enter your name and your email address, you get a free copy of my book in PDF form and so much more, all at wedon'tdie.com. Now, we here at We Don't Die love hearing about NDEs. That's near-death experiences, showing us that our consciousness does, in fact, survive physical death. Today, you'll hear another one. Plus, you'll hear about my all-time favorite resource, which is our friends at the International Association for Near-Death Studies, also known as IANDS.org. And every year, they do an in-person conference. Now, in the year of 2025, it will be in Chicago, Illinois, or just on the outskirts there. It is a big one. It's the 50th anniversary since Dr. Raymond Moody first coined the term near-death experiences, jam-packed with great speakers. We'll talk a little bit about that later. And of course, if you're listening or watching this sometime in the future, you can watch past replays or you can see where the next conference is. So let me tell you about our guest today. We will be talking to Evan Mecham, a former entrepreneur who built and sold several successful companies in the automotive aftermarket. Following his business career, Evan embarked on a new path of service, returning to university to become a transpersonal psychologist, minister, and spiritual counselor. He is trained in a variety of modalities, including regression therapy, NLP, and Reiki. A published author of spiritually uplifting articles, Evan is dedicated to his community in the past. He has supported the Buddhist Mountain Center and volunteered as a caseworker at the Fish Food Bank, where he counseled and mentored others. A retired major in the United States Air Force Reserve, Evan is the president-elect of the International Association for Near-Death Studies, I like to call them IANDS, and has been a board member ever since 2023. So I've spoken enough. Let's meet him. Evan, welcome to We Don't Die.
Good morning, Sandra. How are you?
I'm excellent. As you can tell, I'm very excited to talk to you. And I've had a little bit of caffeine, so...
Sounds like a whole lot of caffeine, but
no, just a little bit. I'm a decaf drinker, but I had a little splash just to, get me out of bed. Let's talk about you. First of all, where in the world are you? You're Colorado?
Yes, ma'am. I live in Broomfield, Colorado, and that is just a little bit northwest of Denver. So I'm on the east side of the Rocky Mountains.
It's a lovely area of the world. All right. Now, I read a little bit about you in the bio, but just talk to us a little bit about who you are, maybe a little bit about your past in your own words. And then the big question is, what happened with your NDE?
Interesting morning to be sitting here with you and share the spirit that you have this morning. You are uplifting. Just listening to you, I feel uplifted. I think my bio said a little bit about who I was. I was a businessman for many years. I truly enjoyed thinking through things, building things from nothing, and creating a space for people to join me and to make money and move forward. It was an exciting way to live my younger life. I had an experience in a car accident where I ran myself right into a semi-truck, and it changed my world forever. It was so fascinating to me because Little by little, my life changed. It took me many years of step-by-step progress to step away from the businesses and things that I was doing and move myself in a totally new direction. I felt driven to be of service to people. I felt driven to speak differently, act differently towards others. So I chose a different path and I went back to school, became a transpersonal psychologist. I went to Atlantic University in Virginia, a life-altering experience to be surrounded by people who think like I thought and to see life as an eternal progression. I began to volunteer everywhere, and I worked with a local food bank here in Colorado, and I became a counselor for them, basically, a caseworker, if you will, and I got to work with all kinds of wonderful people who were impoverished because of circumstance and other things that affected their life. What an experience to work with people and encourage them to come back and give it a second try and push forward. It's amazing when you reach your hand out and you help someone and then you ask them to pass that along. You start to develop a whole line of individuals that have a more positive perspective on life. It's a wonderful thing to see people come back and make it in life and do it with an attitude of kindness to each other, right?
Yes, you are a classic shining star example of the after effects that happen when somebody has an NDE, and it's the giving and making sure people know you don't have to have an NDE to reap those rewards. So, if it's okay with you, would you mind taking us back to the car accident? What happened? We can certainly talk about the after effects, and I definitely want to talk about the conference, but I know my listeners are on their edge of their seat because it's really those stories that really have us go, wow, okay, there is something more.
There certainly is. And there's so much to learn. I think back about that incident, and it's amazing how such a short, quick thing can alter your perspective and alter it for so many years and drive you onward to expand and alter your life for all the right reasons. I was driving home from work. I was in the Rocky Mountains and I was living on one side of a mountain and going to work on the other. This was in the late winter, early spring, and the roads were still wet. The snow would melt during the daytime and then it would freeze at nighttime. And I had stayed at work until very late and I was driving home. And I was pushing myself and driving way too fast, as I often did in those days. I was driving on this very windy mountain road and headed for the interstate at the bottom of the mountain, about 35 minutes away. As I crested a little hill, I saw in my headlights a very large mule deer, a male mule deer with what looked like a massive rack of horns on its head. I could see that I was going to hit that deer and that it would come right over the hood of my car and into my lap. And I wanted to avoid that at all costs. So I jerked my wheel to the left and I went around the deer, missed the deer. And when I turned the wheel back again to come back into my lane of traffic, I hit a wet or slick spot and I simply kept sliding. The car never recovered and I went into the other lane of traffic. And the very first vehicle coming up the hill was a semi-truck. That truck literally cut my vehicle in half from right behind the driver's side front wheel right back to the right side taillights. That vehicle was cut in half and demolished. I remember the last thing that flashed through my mind was, oh my goodness, it's a head-on. That's all I remember of the actual accident. After some time, I gained consciousness and I found myself laying on the floor of the car. I tried to move and tried to raise my right arm up and put the elbow on the seat and try to pull myself up. I couldn't move. Nothing seemed to work in my body anymore. And so I just laid back down on the floor of the car and tried to gain some understanding of what was happening to me. I don't know exactly how long I laid in that position, but it being in the top of the mountains and it being still at the end of winter, it was very cold and it was very uncomfortable. And then as time went on, the pain started to come, and I knew that I was wounded terribly and that there was something very wrong with my body because it just wouldn't move. I found it really difficult to breathe, and it was excruciatingly painful. I tried to move again, and something right in the middle of my back just felt like I was being stabbed with a metal rod, and everything below that point just went numb. So I couldn't feel my legs anymore. And I started the most interesting process. I started to look at myself and feel everywhere I could feel and try to figure out what I had left. It was very interesting because instead of being upset that I couldn't feel, I was more engaged in trying to determine what I had left, which is an interesting thing to think about. And that's been a big part of the process of how I've lived my life since that time. Always look for what's left. What do you have to work with? What do you have that you can apply and move forward? Don't spend any time wasting your efforts on what you've lost, but let's look at what you've got left and how you can use it. So I remember people came to the vehicle and they called out to me to see if I was okay. And they told me that they had called the emergency services. Now, this is quite some time ago, so we didn't have 911 in those days. And I was on the top of a mountain, so somebody had to find a little farmhouse and go use the phone to call. And they said that emergency services had been contacted and they'll be at least another 35 minutes coming up the mountain. There was, I guess, a little hospital at the bottom of the mountain. So I had nothing to do but lay back. And as I did, I had the most amazing experience. I became almost unconscious, if you will, and incredibly focused. And I went through my life from a little child to the current time, and I saw so many experiences that I had. And I had an amazing younger life. My parents were kind and loving. They never, ever made me feel that I wasn't loved and accepted. My father was one of the kindest men I've ever known. So I had these beautiful feelings, and I was so grateful. And then I saw myself, and I had incredible experiences with my inner talk, if you will. And I always felt, because I had been born Christian, I always felt that I was speaking to Jesus when I had these experiences. And I would ask questions and I would get answers. I remember all of those things. And it put me into a mood of being so grateful for this opportunity to live and for having the life that I did. And I had found love. I had married. I had 3 little children at the time. It was a beautiful walk through my younger years. And I remember saying that I was very grateful for my life. I began to stop shivering. I don't know if my body actually stopped or if it was just the fact that I was bleeding out and moving into the death process. I began to feel less cold. I began to feel less pain. I remember closing my eyes and putting my head back, and I went through this process of actually stepping away from my body. And it was fascinating. When you are leaving this life, you have only your feelings and only your experiences to guide you, that there is something else. I remember saying to myself that whether or not there's anything else that follows this, I'm grateful for my life. And I said, thank you to God. And I laid back down and I left my body. I had no idea what was going to happen. I found myself laying on my face, what has really been very difficult to describe over the years. It was almost a little bit foggy on the ground. It was firm, but I couldn't make out what it was constructed of. I remember raising my head and looking around and then putting my hands. And as I did that, I could see right through my hands. And I pushed myself up and I looked around and I was in this incredible space where this platform, where this fogginess spread out as a floor. And then I looked up and I saw the Milky Way galaxy. And it was magnificent. It had colors that I had never seen before. The darkness had a richness to it. The stars were so brilliant and outstanding. And you would see pinks and other colors that flashed through the universe. I looked forward and I saw a group of what I thought were spirits or ethereal beings. And they were all light and beautiful. I was not able to differentiate who they were. I did not know, but they were calling to me. And their call I saw inside my brain, if you will, my head. It wasn't in words, it was in pictures. And I knew I was being called and summoned. I thought I would have to get up, but the reality is that I just moved towards them, floating very quickly. And once I was there, I was surrounded by these beings. And I felt an incredible wave of love that wrapped me and embraced me and loved me. I felt welcomed. I felt accepted. There was no judgment. There was no criticism. There was no weighing of things. There was only a deep embrace of complete acceptance and love. Everything that I had been concerned with as I laid in that car thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to take care of my family? I just got this new job. How am I going to work through this job? I need the money. I have to make the payments. All of the have-tos of life that perplex us all every day were flowing through me in that car. And now I'm standing surrounded by these angels of light, and they're loving me, and they're embracing me, and they're accepting me. And every single concern, every stress that I felt a moment ago was gone. I knew that everything was going to be all right. Everything was going to be the way it's supposed to be. As I stayed there, I felt a feeling for the first time in my physical life. I felt free. I was released from all of the burdens of the third dimension. These beings that were embracing me, they took away every feeling that I was concerned about. It was gone. It was gone. And I knew all would be well. As I looked up and I saw this incredible picture of the Milky Way galaxy, and you could see the stars in the background, I realized that I'm a part of all of this. And the second great lesson that I learned was that no matter how tiny I was, I still was a part of this incredible creation. The creation is a multiverse. It is multiple dimensions. It is massive. What God has done is so much bigger than a human being can possibly comprehend. And I knew I was a part of God. and that everything, everyone, every person, sentient being, wherever they might be found, was a part of this universe. Those incredible beings that were embracing me and filling me with energy and filling me with light and love. Little me. And all the little me's on the planet that I just left, we're all a part of this creation. And we're important. And it was an incredible change of perspective. How can you not look at everyone and not feel that they're a part of you and you're a part of them? I'm sure these beings knew exactly what was going on and exactly what I was going to do. But they told me that I can stay in your home or you can go back. But this is your decision and you have to make that. And I thought, oh my gosh, a third thing to remember, right? That we have the choice. I realized we made the choice to come in the first place, and we made it from a point of love. Now we've forgotten that, but we chose to come. And we had a soul purpose, a soul mission, if you will. And we came here to fulfill that. And once we can grasp and comprehend that we chose this, and that we have a path, that we're part of the oneness, that we never die, we're part of God and this entire creation, it changes how you perceive this opportunity. And you begin to call it an opportunity. And you begin to call your peers and your friends and everyone else friends. We're all here together. We're all here to do something that our soul desperately wants to do and fulfill. So they said, choose, what will it be? And of course, the first thing I thought about were my little children. And I thought, I'd really like to see how their life turns out. I'd like to see them on their path, right? As soon as I thought that, I was shot back into my body, back in that car, on the floor, freezing to death, broken, and feeling all the pain that we feel here in this third dimension when we're broken to pieces, right? And I'm screaming. First of all, it was so difficult to get back into that body. My body was being lifted up by the first responders, and they were using the jaws of life to tear off the door and to tear off the roof of the vehicle. And they had slipped a bodyboard down underneath me, and they were pulling me out, and I was screaming in pain, and I was back. And they loaded me into the ambulance, and for another 35-minute ride down the mountain, and an incredible thing happened. There's a little hospital at the bottom of this mountain, and it's right on the interstate and this other road that I had been driving on. And they had so many accidents that they decided that they would develop a trauma team at this hospital. Unbeknownst to me, for sure, it was the night that they had their very first meeting as the trauma team. And all these doctors were there in their suits because they were at a meeting, right? But there was a whole team of doctors that were specialists from all around the country who had been brought to this hospital to lead this trauma team and help this hospital be of service to all the people who needed help. So I'm rushed in, I'm placed on this table, and there is this cacophony of sounds and people doing things and doctors coming at you from every place in the world, right? And they're all probing and pushing and sticking, and they had no time because I had literally nearly bled out, and they had to do their work very quickly. And so it was very painful, and they were about to rush me into the operating room. They had stabilized me, and I said to the doctor that was closest to me, I said, would you pray for me? Now, this doctor didn't know me. I'm just some guy on the road. And he said, yes. And he started to pray, and all the sounds in that room went quiet. It was like everything shut off, and this doctor prayed for me and said a beautiful prayer. I was so grateful. Can you imagine most doctors praying for you? What an incredible man he was. And when he was done, he said, "Amen." The noise started up again, and off we went to the operating room. And my life started again. But it started again with a great insight into how important my life was. I came to earth for me and to learn these things and to walk my soul's mission and to do it in kindness and in love for all of God's creation. And that's my story.
Just want to give you a big hug right now. Wow. Well, on one hand, I'm sorry you went through it. On the other hand, I'm grateful you went through it because of the difference you've made. And I think that just shows each and every one of us the difference we can make. I want to just bring up one thing. You and others that have had NDEs, it's hard to put into words the colors, the love, all of that. But you said that this incredible light would require 50,000 crayons to really describe. Is that what you're talking about? So
Yeah,
vivid?
indeed. I love that you bring that up. That was something that was said by someone else, but I quoted it because I thought it was so brilliant. You know, we have for all of our little children who love to draw and love to make paintings and crayon drawings, we have these little box of crayons, right? And I remember when I was a young child, I got, for a birthday, I got this great big box of, I think there were 48 crayons in this box, right? And I thought, oh my goodness, I can color everything and I can find just the perfect color for whatever I want to draw. And I read how an individual who had a similar experience to me said, here we are with 48 crayons, when if you could see the colors I saw, you'd need 50,000 crayons. Don't you love that? Don't you just love that? It's so expanding. We get so focused and tunneled in our lives, and we get pulled, and our focus becomes myopic. And if you just step back, take a deep breath, and open your eyes to a much broader perspective, you see the world in such a different way. And you realize how massive it all is, and that there's always choices to be made. There's always different ways to approach everything. And there's always something to be grateful for.
Absolutely. I am 100% positive your road to recovery was probably a very long one. But I also want to ask you what you experienced. Did you know at the time Raymond Moody and others were out with near-death experiences? Had you heard any stories like this then, or was there a road to connect? Because I do want to talk about our fabulous friends at IANDS.
Yeah.
What was that like for you, the recuperation, and also the search as to what's this bigger picture? What was that? Are there other people that have had that?
Indeed, I think it was, for me, a very long and a lovely road. I loved the path that I have walked. I loved history. My college degree was in history, and I love it, right? So I knew how to research, and I dived into things. I found myself being pulled towards understanding of how other people see things. So I reached out and became very interested in Buddhism. And I didn't just read about it, I went and practiced it, right? And learned how to meditate. I found an incredible organization here called Naropa. It's right here in Boulder. The organization has a wonderful mountain retreat where there's a giant stupa. I went up and took their classes. I thrived in the atmosphere that they provided there, which was open and non-judgmental. It made me feel at home again, right? There was no judgment. There was just welcoming and opportunities to learn and to be uplifted and to learn to go inside and calm yourself and ways to practice meditation and ways to touch a spirit again. It was wonderful. I went from that to Hinduism, and I became very close to a group that's up in Loveland and run by an incredible Swami up there. We're still incredibly good friends, and I enjoyed him so much, and I learned so much, and I researched every religion, every idea, every philosophy, and I found truth and love in all of them. I realized that everyone here, it gave real understanding to the idea that I had felt when I had crossed over, right? That we are all here to find our own path and to live out our soul's mission. That everyone and every culture has ways of finding spirit again and ways to teach us to love each other and accept that we're all part of this incredible creation. So I loved the process. I became a vegetarian. My wife, my family thought I was crazy because I was running around and going in all these different directions and had all these new ideas and all these new feelings. I didn't really understand what was happening to me. Not the talk. It was not the podcasters like yourself that reach out and tell people these wonderful messages. And so it was step by step for me. And I went through a tremendous process to understand who I was and what had happened to me. And I loved every step that I made, and I learned in every step that I took. It was a beautiful journey, and I would do it all over again. When I first became aware of IANDS, it was like finding my people, if you will, right? And I remember the first time I heard near-death experience. I was in a class, actually, and I'm studying another modality, and they played a movie where they talked about near-death experiences. And I remember sitting in the back of the classroom, and I lost all track of time. I'm contemplating what I had just seen. And the professor walks by me and he goes, "Evan, why are you still here? Everybody's gone." And I said, "I just realized that there's a name to what happened to me. It's called a near-death experience." That drove me to find out if there were, and obviously there was, right? There was a local IANDS. In fact, there was one in Denver and one in Boulder. And I started to attend these meetings. And I was welcomed with open arms. And it was lovely. It was soul fulfilling, right? And I heard others talk about similar experiences. And it was so satisfying, so calming. I was no longer alone. And I could talk about all these things without any fear of rolling eyes or acceptance of what I was speaking about. So it was lovely. It was lovely. And the spirit that you find in these local groups that we have over 80 of them around the world now. And those little local groups, they reach over 22,000 people every month with their meetings and their sharing groups. And people are invited without judgment, without any criticism. You are invited to share your stories. It's a beautiful thing.
I know
And
just what you mean about finding your people, finding your tribe. I spoke first in Philadelphia at the conference and talk about finding like-minded souls. And what's interesting to me and I love is you don't have to have a near-death experience to belong. And not only are there the chapters around the world, but I've been asked to speak on the Zoom group. So the chapter, say in Chicago, people from all over the world can watch the videos on YouTube from some of these chapters. I love that. So the reach is out there. So you don't need to have a near-death experience. You just have to be open-minded. And I know since COVID hit the world, a lot of in-person things shut down and were turned into online. But I feel the IANDS conference, yearly conference, is just the biggest, the best. I didn't have the time to count all the speakers that you have, but when I went to the website conference.iands.com, it's going to be in Chicago, August 2025. And of course, that's the website for future conferences and also to watch past replays. But I had this holy cow moment because not only is it the 50th year since Dr. Raymond coined the term near-death experiences, but you have some of the biggest and top names of the doctors and scientifically minded people. And so many of them I have interviewed, but you got the best of the best there talking about the research. Plus, you have dozens upon dozens of actual experiencers who have been there. So I know Dr. Raymond Moody's going to be there, Dr. Bruce Grayson, Jeffrey and Jody Long, Jan Holden, Graham Maxey, Dr. Melvin Morse, Caroline Mace, William Peters, talking about shared death experiences. My new top favorite is Dr. Tom Nemi from Australia, carrying on the work of Dr. Alan Botkin, doing the induced after-death communication grief therapy. It's just incredible. And so many more. So if we could just move into talking about conferences. Yeah, now I'm fully aware there's people that are watching this in the future or that you can't attend the conference live. So you can watch videos. Absolutely everything's there. And many years past videos are on demand. Plus, there's always a yearly conference going on. So while I want to, have a major thrust into having people join for the 2025 conference, I just want to keep it open that there's an ongoing one if you can't make this one. So could you talk a little bit about that? Because this is a big deal for people to find their tribe and actually be able to talk to people one-on-one who are interested in this.
Yes, I love the introduction you just did. You mentioned all of the keynotes, and we are incredibly blessed this year. And there have been synchronicities that have happened so that some of these speakers can come. Raymond Moody rarely speaks anymore. And we literally will have Raymond Moody, who started all of this and gave a name to what we're talking about. Thank you, Dr. Moody, for giving a name to what happened to me. I appreciate it. You helped me define it, and I'm very grateful. Raymond Moody is coming in person, and we have a movie that has been done, an interview of Raymond Moody. And I have seen a screening of this. The public has not been allowed to see this yet, but it will be introduced at our conference this year. So you'll see it for the first time at the conference. And Raymond Moody does an absolutely incredible job of talking about his life and how the book Life After Life was written and how it came to be, and all the research that he's done in his life, which has helped develop this experience, this reality, if you will, into something that can be studied and understood and spread from soul to soul. So I'm grateful for the pioneers like Dr. Moody. We also have Dr. Hennessy Powell with us from the telepathy tapes. And she is one of the top presenters in the world today about the new science that's coming forth, where we're starting to look at human beings as souls, not just material objects. and her work with children of autism who are on the spectrum and their ability to have communication skills that are beyond anything that we can imagine has turned the world on its head and opened a lot of eyes to how incredible the human being truly is. And we have Dr. Bruce Grayson, as you said, and what wonderful work he's done. And we have Chaz Ebert joining us, who will be on a panel with William Peters. And they have a brand new movie called Suffering into Gold. And it is an incredible movie as well. That will be on Wednesday night before our conference. And Chaz Ebert, she is still very much loved in the Chicagolands, and she has over 1 million followers. So we're incredibly lucky to have her. But we have 120 speakers. We have 120.
Wow.
We have 120. And they are people like me. Many of them are the people who've had these experiences, who have gone through the pain of death, who have stepped over and gone back home and then chosen to come back. They're the ones that all these people are writing about. They're the ones that can share their heart and their soul experiences with everyone who has ever contemplated death. And what that is it, the last limit of humanity, and we die and we never come back. Is there anything else? They can tell you, 120 people can tell you that they have crossed over and they've come back. And it's a wonderful experience for most.
Well, you're never going to believe this, but my subtitle of my book is A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. Oh, I had such a big ego back in the day. It's like, oh, these people with a near-death experience, they see the light. It's just part of the brain shutting down. I have been following and obviously interviewing so many people who've had near-death experience and the science and everybody that's working on it. And the proof that our consciousness survives physical death, the verifiable evidence that people have come back with that they could never know. The people that they see that are deceased, that they were never told were deceased. There's so much. So for anyone who just wants a great time and feel like you're heard and you're part of a tribe and a community, you found your people, this is the place to be at. Whether you can join live, whether you can watch the replay videos, IANDS is the place to be. So let me just give you just some of the basics. For 2025, at least, it is going to be August 27th through 31st at the beautiful Oak Brook Hills Resort just outside of Chicago, Illinois. And of course, you can find out about upcoming conferences, past conference videos, register for this one, and so much more at conference.iands.org. You can also just go to the iands.org website if you're interested in near-death experiences. It's just a treasure trove of experiences that you can read about, find groups. I tell you, between iands.org and the good people at helpingparentsheal.org, either the two best organizations out there really spreading the word and then giving hope and community and comfort above and beyond anything. After we find our tribe and we realize that we're souls having a human experience, you've really left me today, Evan, with that feeling of being interconnected, and people that we see, call them friends. We all have some tough things that have happened to us, even relationships that haven't worked out. But if we can look through the lens of souls that are connected, and that the gift that each and every one of these people have brought to us, we can call them friends. So is there anything else you'd like to share, either about the conference or some words that you're just inspired to share before we wrap up our episode today?
I love a poem by Thich Nhat Hanh, and I'd like to read that. Can I read that?
Please.
Han has passed now, but to me, he was a hero. He was incredible, and he saw the world exactly as I've described it. And he lived his life in service of others. His entire life was dedicated to helping people, uplifting people, and helping people bond and understand that we're all one. We're all from the same source. And he talks about one of the biggest works that he was involved in was when over 2 million people left Vietnam on boats. This happened after the Vietnam War, and 2 million people were on any kind of object that would float, and they were overloaded. They had a lack of food, a lack of water, and they were simply leaving and trying to find a safe place, a safe harbor that they could restart their lives in. And it took many years for this to take place. And some say that as many as 400,000 people died in searching for a new home. These people were attacked by pirates, and the pirates would come on board ships. They would do horrible things. They would take the last remnants of food and water and whatever, but they would even do worse. And they would take the young girls and they would do awful things to them. And his poem encompasses an experience that a young Vietnamese woman went through. What they called a river pirate attacked their boat, and she was raped, and she couldn't live with it. And she threw herself into the sea after it happened and drowned. And Thich Nhat Hanh talks about this and talks about the reality of who we really are. His poem is called Call Me by My True Names. Do not say that I'll depart tomorrow, because even today I still arrive. Look deeply. I arrive in every second to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with wings still fragile, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, in order to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that are alive. I'm the mayfly metamorphosing on the surface of the river, and I'm the bird which, when spring comes, arrives in time to eat the mayfly. I'm the frog swimming happily in a clear pond, and I am also the grass snake who, approaching in silence, feeds itself upon the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs thin as bamboo sticks, and I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. And I am the pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the Politburo with plenty of power in my hands, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people, dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom in all walks of life. My pain is like a river of tears, so full it fills all four oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and laughs at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true name so I can wake up, and so the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion. Juan talked about the oneness of all things. That is, peace is in every step.
Okay.
I Thich Nhat Hanh. And I think this is all about the oneness. regardless. God created this massive, beautiful, incredible, multidimensional universe. And everything that makes it go is part of that creation. And we're part of that. We're a piece of that. And it's in the end beautiful and lovely and harmonious and graceful. And I say, thank you, God, for my life. Thanks for this morning. I appreciate it. I'm very grateful. Thank you for helping us grow with IANDS and tell people about us. We're very grateful for all you're doing. Thank you.
You are most welcome. We are forever partners, whether on this side of life or the next. I will do everything I can. IANDS has made a huge difference in my life. I've been a member for years and years now. So although I can't be at the conference this year, I'm sure you'll see me sometime. Well, ladies and gentlemen watching or listening today, we've been speaking with Evan Mecham, the president-elect of the International Association for Near-Death Studies. As a reminder, you can go to iands.org or conference.iands.org. Great people, great way to stay connected. There's so much there. We human beings, I think, need a little recharge. So I think listening to a great podcast or reading a good book, going to a conference, to remember who you really are. As a byproduct of being human, we often forget. So we need these connections to know that we are divine souls having a human experience and that all is well and we are all connected. So again, the conference this year, August 27th through 31st, 2025, outside of Chicago, Illinois. Find out more at conference.iands.org. And as a reminder, come visit me, wedon'tdie.com. At the bottom of the page, if you want to enter your name and email address, I got lots of goodies for you. It says you get the first few chapters of my book. The secret is it is the entire book. Chapter 10 is very important, how to survive grief. I know that's something that brings a lot of us into looking for evidence, the afterlife. So I want to give you everything I've got. Between this show, my video interviews here on We Don't Die, and my iHeartRadio podcast called Shades of the Afterlife, I'm now close to 750 hours of episodes. That's 750 unique episodes. So not only do I wholeheartedly know the reality of the afterlife, but I want to give you everything I've got to help through grief and also to empower you to have one heck of a life. And if in doubt, just be of service to others. All right, take your eye off you on somebody else, and that's step number one. So everything you can find at wedon'tdie.com. In closing, I'm Sandra Champlain, and I'm always so delighted to be your host on We Don't Die. Like I said, I do believe that life is an education for the soul and that your life here on earth is important. I really want to thank you for listening or for watching, and we'll see you again soon.